Hi, my name is Tabitha Owanda and you're watching InterSTEM. One of the things that I do on this channel is to highlight the incredible initiatives that are being done by Africans in science, tech, engineering and math to promote STEM in Africa for Africans. And the reason I do so is because one, I'm African, and two, I think it's important to tell my story or stories of people just like me, just to inspire the next generation or people in my age group who are seeking validation as Africans in science. So in today's video, I want to highlight some of the countries that are leading the way in terms of astronomical research on the continent. These guys are contributing to the conversation of what lies beyond our planet and how does it affect our world down here. So before I start the video, I'd like to take you through a few terms that will help you understand the conversation a little bit better. So I'm pretty new to this. I don't have any background in astronomy, but by sheer interest, I find myself talking about it and sharing this information with people who don't already know it. So the first term I'd like us to learn is an observatory. An observatory is basically a building that houses a telescope or other scientific equipment used to study natural phenomena. Okay, got it. The second thing I'd like us to look at is the types of telescopes that have been identified as being used on the continent by the African Astronomical Society. I looked through their website and there's 3 telescopes that stood out to me. The first is an optical telescope. The second is a radio telescope, and the third is an atmospheric telescope. If you don't know what these are, that's totally fine. You could always Google later, but just know that these are like the main telescopes that are in use in Africa to study beyond everything in space. Yeah. So the next term I'd like us to learn about is the ABN. ABN stands for something very long, so stay with me as I read through. ABN is the Africa Very Long Baseline Interferometry Network. Alright? It's basically an array of radio telescopes throughout Africa that will form part of the existing global Very Long Baseline Interferometry Network, VLBI. So the AVN will be part of the VLBI, and so a bunch of radio telescopes around the world, and Africa has a couple of them that form part of the network. Do you get me? Yes. Why I chose to highlight that is because some of the observatories I'm going to talk about are part of the AVN, and if I don't tell you what the AVN is or the VLBI, you'll be like, what? You know. So here's what's up. So I'm going to highlight 5 different observatories based on the 5 different regions of Africa, and the observatories I choose are based on the number of published astronomers that are there in that country, so number of astronomers contributing to the research that we get in Africa in terms of astronomy. And the other observatories that I do not cover will be featured in the end of the video as FYIs. So the first observatory I'm going to cover is the South African Astronomical Observatory. This observatory houses the South African Large Telescope, which is the largest optical telescope in the Southern Hemisphere. It's also interesting to note that South Africa is in the lead in terms of number of geophysicists and astronomers in the continent with 1,178. I'm getting my data from the African Astronomy website that gets its data from NASA's astrophysics data system. So I think that's quite credible. Yeah. In West Africa, we have Nigeria leading in astronomical research with 158 astronomers and geophysicists, and they're of course leading in publications, closely followed by Benin. I don't know what the exact name of the observatory is, but from online sources, I was able to figure out that Nigerian scientists at the Center for Basic Space Science in Nsukka are actually spearheading the construction of an interferometer, which will, of course, join the network of the VLBI and the AVN. In North Africa, the country taking the lead is Egypt. When I think about Egypt, like ancient Egypt, astronomy was a huge part of their lifestyle. So I'm not surprised that Egypt is still in the lead in North Africa in terms of astronomy. It has 589 astronomers and geophysicists, and the country that comes after is Algeria with 191. The observatory that I would highlight in Egypt is the Kotamia Observatory, which houses the largest telescope in North and Central Africa, as well as the Middle East, according to the African Astronomical Society website. So in Eastern Africa, we have Ethiopia taking the lead. It's got 48 astronomers and geophysicists, between 2013 and 2018 who had their work published. And the observatory I'm going to highlight in Ethiopia is the Entoto Observatory and Research Center in Ethiopia. The observatory is under the Ethiopian Space, Science and Technology Institute. So when it comes to Central Africa, I have to say that the contributions to astronomical research are significantly lower than that of other parts of Africa. The highest being in Cameroon. And when I checked my map, I realized that Cameroon has 49 astronomers and geophysicists. However, I'm still not able to locate a single observatory in Cameroon. It's possible I was looking at the wrong places, but after a couple of online websites and still finding nothing, it makes me question how these guys are actually working and where they're getting their data from. It's possible that they're working with observatories in other countries and publishing their work, and this map works with the nationality of the scientist, not necessarily the location of where the work was done. So that's my brief review on the different regions in Africa and how they're contributing to astronomical research on the continent. As I said, this review is just very brief because there's very little, I would say, information in terms of the specific observatories and what they have. At most, I get like single pages on a couple of websites, but I feel like if you know more about these things, post it online, share it. There's obviously a huge disparity in where most of this research is taking place. I see the north of Africa and the south of Africa really vigorous in terms of astronomical research and the number of astronomers and geophysicists that they have. I feel like there's more room for such professionals in Central Africa, West Africa, East Africa, so that we're all growing collectively as a continent. It's not that some areas are very well off and others are still figuring it out. If you want to support the growth of astronomy in Africa or want to learn more about it, definitely the first step is to get informed on the different initiatives that are already taking place, get informed of what's happening on a global scale and compare it to what's happening locally and see how you can bridge that gap. Get informed on the opportunities that are open to you, especially if you're interested in studying astronomy, becoming an astronomer, contributing to research. Figure out what lies out there for you and take advantage of those opportunities. And last but not least, once you get all that information, if it doesn't apply to you in the moment, do share it with people whom it will help. Alright? For example, this video, if you think it was helpful, if you think it was kind of informative, then share it out. I will state that this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of astronomy in Africa. I still feel like there's a lot more to be covered, and I'm throwing the challenge to anyone watching this video that I've done the bare minimum. Take this on and do more with it, explore more, present more information, get more people enlightened, and that's how we move forward. Until the next video I have, goodbye, and subscribe.